Scano. Hi, good evening. It's nice to see everyone. Welcome. My name is Jody Harbour. I'm a co-founder of Grandmother's Voice, a grassroots organization and platform elevating Indigenous wisdom. It's an honor to be here with each of you tonight and those who will be joining later and watching the recording in another time in ceremony lifted by the heartbeat of Mother Earth, held in the sacred presence of our ancestors. We welcome you. Each week, we gather in this circle with the grandmothers and grandfathers from across the 7 continents, elders whose lives are rooted in sacred knowledge, ancestral memory, and a deep commitment to healing truth and spirit. Their voices carry the wisdom we need in these times. Wisdom not born of theory, but of lived experience, of ceremony, of connection to the land and spirit. This is not just a series. It's a remembering, a weaving of story and spirit that calls us back to who we are and to who we are becoming. Now's the time. Now's the time to gather, to listen, to honor the voices of the elders who've carried these teachings through generations.
Thank you, Jody. That was just beautiful. Thank you so much. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. I'm Susan Kaiulani Stanton, and we have 2 wonderful people here tonight who are about to share some of the most amazing things that are coming through them, and for us all to be able to learn and to grow and then to turn around and share. And so with Jody's help, we're able to provide this platform now where we archive all of these calls. We still have quite a few left to go, 52 in total. And every week it'll be different wisdom keepers, elders, grandmothers who are going to be sharing with us. And so now we're going to begin with a prayer tonight in song. And this is from our grandmother, Nancy Andre, and other grandmothers, and they have shared this with us for you with their blessings.
My sister was using an AI in real.
Sorry about that. It just went somewhere else.
Looks like Jody went there too.
The nicest sidetracked every now and then.
Well, the river is like that, isn't it? We never quite know what's going to be coming downstream. Just have our paddles ready.
Yeah. And you really don't want me to sing, so hopefully she takes that video up. Well, they say turn that off. Yeah.
It was, and I'm sure she's working on it. And it's such a beautiful song. And but we could go ahead and begin, actually, if we wanted to do it that way. I don't want to take up our time because it's so important with what you both have to share. So if it's all right with you. Oh, there she is. What did you find out, Jody? There we go.
Nibi,
Wabo,
Endayan,
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misli, Nibi, Wabo, Eya,
Water is the life's blood of our mother, the earth. Water is the lifeblood of our own body.
Nibi wabo enayen aki miskwi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
To continue to pass on the knowledge that needs to be given unto the other generations. You are the keeper of the water.
Nibi wabo enayen aki miskwi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
To make the change in this life condition that we're in, that great-grandchildren will stand up to this truth of what life is about, and to live it in such an honorable way, the way ancestors came to this earth.
Nibi wabo enayen aki miskwi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
Each day when the sun rises, no matter how bad the day before might have been, there's a new chance for your hopes and dreams. And I say, Chimikwech, thank you for singing the water song.
Nibi wabo enayen aki miskwi. Nibi wabo heya 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 hey heya 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 ho.
Thank you, Jody. Aloha kea kua kuleana. This evening, I called Grandmother Nancy at the very last minute, and I asked her if we could use her song. And she was really happy for us to do that. And she's watching now from her home. So I just want to say thank you again to her on behalf of all of us for the beautiful blessing that we get from the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to begin now with introducing Grandmother Gail Whitlow. And you've seen her bio, so I'm not going to get into any of the details. I'm going to tell the little known stuff. It makes her very nervous. See that face? No, I'm just going to share one thing, and that is that many years ago, I won't say how many, but it's been back in the 20s, I think, 20 years, whatever. But around 2009, she and I were heading out, I think it was 2009, 2010, heading to Arizona. And as we were traveling, we were talking about how wonderful it would be if we started something to do with grandmothers. And we had ended up, we were, some other elders were going to be there. Jacob Wawati, I believe that was at the same time as that. And I was looking for a place for them, for everybody to be able to spend the night on the way to Adam Yellowbird's gathering. And so I called Mona Palaka. I actually called somebody else who put me through to Mona Palaka, who I had never met before, from the 13 Indigenous grandmothers, the international grandmothers. I'd never met her. I told her I was driving with these people and that we needed a place to spend the night. She told me where she hides her key because she was in Kansas at a gathering. So she told me where to go to look to find her hidden key. We all went in, spent the night in her house. It was the most phenomenal night. Gail and I went to bed. We talked about this. And in that moment, grandmothers circle the earth began to form. And we ended up also, we had our first gathering in the Mimbres in New Mexico. We had the Pachamama Alliance. As we were driving to Kansas with no idea, we're going through Kansas to New Mexico. This is a few months later. No idea what we're going to be doing. A Guatemalan Mayan abuelo called. Somebody called for him. He didn't speak much English and said, "Can he come to your gathering?" It was like, and from then on, that's the way it was. It was like when you're playing cards and you shuffle the deck and those cards all just fall in place and you have no idea how they got there and you have no idea what they're going to look like. All you know is that you've turned it over. And so now, because of that very auspicious beginning, we are the proud circle of grandmothers in 39 countries in Africa, in Mongolia, in Iraq, in Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, Tonga, Hawaii, all over Ecuador, Venezuela, all these different places, Colombia. We've got grandmothers everywhere. And it was time. It was just time. And all we are just happened to be there in that place, just like we are tonight. And so for those of you that are with us now in the circle, and those of you who will be joining us in the days and even weeks and months and maybe even years into the future, I just want to say how grateful and blessed I am to be able to sit here and turn the time over first to Grandmother Gail, and then I'll be back to talk to you about Grandfather Michael. But with that, Gail, it's yours.
Yeah. Well, I always have to be prepared because I really never know which story you're going to tell because we have so many, stories that we could share. And so, hello everyone. Sego se wa fuego, katine ni. I'm Gail Whitlow from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, Southern Ontario, Canada. And we're hitting the beautiful essence of the fall. The temperatures are now starting to get lower. The trees are starting to turn, and there's such a beauty. So that kind of is what we need to speak more about, and it's that beauty that surrounds us. We look up in the sky, we have the cloud beings, we have the stars, we have so many things that when you study the sky, you see that the sky is not boring, it is full of life. And so when you watch the stars and when you watch the sky and when you watch the waters and you watch what's going on in nature, there's this beauty that you can't escape from, and it fills your soul with such good vibes. The gathering that and the gatherings that followed, the memories extended across the waters, and the waters were waiting to part for us to come, because it seems that as we went and we did nothing but plant seeds, we did not say, hey, this is the way you do it. We just says, this is simply what we know. We'll share a little bit, and hopefully you can rekindle the teachings from your ancestors. And as you do so, you'll make that change, and you'll get to know that deep knowledge that's hidden within. Because as we travel the world, we find that everywhere we go, people have experienced what us Native people have been experiencing the last few years, well, last few hundred years. But in Europe and different places, it's been much longer than that, and they're further from that heart or that soul of the earth, and but it just takes a little rekindling, and that's all it took. And so, as Susan said, we have all of these grandmother circles now that have formed all over the world, and it was such a blessing to be a part of just that awakening. And at one of the gatherings in Poland, one of our beautiful uh, ladies, Patricia, she did a little video, and that little video was shared with us like not long ago, like maybe less than a year ago. And after that, we had this beautiful chit chat about those times when we were over there, and we were just being. And it changed them so profoundly, and it was so beautiful to see and to know that um, they were so grateful for everything that had happened during that time. And let me tell you, there were miracles happening every day. Like we just never knew what the next day was going to bring, and there was so much magic and there was so much beauty in that walk. And to hear them talk about how it affected them in such a profound way, and how they were giving thanks, for having that opportunity just to be and to go deeper within and to bring, what their ancestors had in store for them. So, that was just one of the profound things that happened when we did our seed planting. And it was never about anything more than that. We simply were there. We helped them plant a seed, and that seed started to grow, and that seed turned into something very beautiful. So I thank the spirit of, I guess, the elders who came before us, and they helped to shape everything that we experienced on those journeys. So when we get to the point, where we say, hey, we're able to do this, it takes a lot of background work in order to get that. First we're born and we have to go through all those experiences of, learning and straying off the path and straying back on the path and finding the path and then changing the path and, all of these things that we go through. But in the end, it's a path, and we choose from one day to the next what that path is going to look like. And that's the beauty of life. It's usually when you start to get older, you're more careful with your choices, you learn how to be, and those are the things that are totally important. So I remember when I took my first flight. I think I was 17, and my first flight was out to Haida Gwaii. And what a change. Like it was just it was so totally different than, being home, that there was just something there. And it was the spark. So during all of the adventures that we have in our daily lives, there's always this little spark that can, take us right to another place, like instantly. And it's there that we start to learn and we start to grow. I mean, when you're away from your family, when you're away from, what as, on a daily basis, you really have to figure it out. And so that's what happens. You go through life, you become a teenager, you become an adult, you become parents, you become, grandparents. And through all of those experiences is where you finally get to the start of understanding where you are and why you're on this path. And some of us choose really hard paths, and some of us not so hard, but they all feel the same, no matter how hard or how easy the paths have been. Something about those paths all feels the same, and it's up to us to make those decisions to make that path a little smoother, or to like find it, or to create a new path if that what's needed. So when I look back at some of the inspirations that helped to create that energy within myself, one of the most important things was ceremony. Now, ceremony is complex or it's simple. It all has to do with what you're looking for. And so you can go and you can do that sweat lodge, or you can go into longhouse and you can be part of, those very powerful ceremonies. You can share with your Tibetan neighbors, their ceremonies, or anyone else that comes along your path. You can always start to be. And one of the things we're taught, especially when you're getting prepared and you've never been to Longhouse before, it's don't ask questions, don't waste your energy, don't waste your time. And part of that is because you don't know what questions to ask. So just observe first, maybe observe more than once, and then you know what kind of questions to ask. I guess when I was way back in the day, I started that path, and I was always lucky because I had somebody beside me, and they're always like, oh, they're doing this or they said this. And so it became an experience where you face your fear, and then the beauty comes from that. And then the more you go, the more ceremonies that you attend, For us, we have what we call a cycle of ceremonies, and we have approximately 13 ceremonies, some more, some less. Some of them are 1 day, some of them are 3 or 4 days, some of them are 7 days, maybe a little bit later, maybe a little bit longer. But through all of that, each time that you go, something new happens, something inspires you even deeper, and there's just something that grows within. And what that really is love, and it's more about finding finding that sense of fire deep within, because sometimes life experiences pull us down, and we're like that little seed, and that little seed never gets the nourishment that it needs. But something about ceremony takes you and starts to, just create that proper environment. And next thing you know, you start to grow and you start to live, and then you start to, you start to become that beauty that that you hold deep within. So, and it doesn't matter what type of ceremony that you attend, as long as you're getting that experience. I've also had the experience where the ceremony wasn't right for me, as my spidey senses would say, "Gail, don't, Gail, don't," and I listened most of the time, but there was a couple times that I had to figure it out, and I had to figure out the hard way. So it was like, even though Spidey senses were saying, "Gail, no, no," Gail said, "Well, okay." Sometimes I was able to walk into the sweat, just go around that circle and come right back out, because I knew that there was something off about that time there. So I would just, still honor by maybe being outside, but I just knew that for whatever reason, I was not to be part of that at that time. And so that happens in all life walks. You get to that point where you find there is a way to do it and a way not to do it. And so the way not to do it, you learn first, it seems, because you don't pay enough attention to that deeper calling within. So, so when we're talking about, ceremonies that are near and dear to your heart, so for me in Haudenosaunee, I really connect to our ceremonies. But I did connect to Sundance, and I did connect to so many other ceremonial walks along that way. And again, it was our ancestors who kind of opened those doors for us. And I know Michael's going to talk about his path with some of those elders. And I know a lot of those elders as well, including Mad Bear. I remember we would go over there. My dad would take us there, and a lot of times it was to get our status card, or to get that little green card, or whatever. And Dad would be there, and he'd be, chit chat, and we'd be there, and and those were very inspiring days to me, because I don't know, there was just something about moments where you meet people who you remember. So I totally remember Mad Bear, from way back when I was much younger at the time, and there were many along the journey that have inspired me as well. We also get to the point then where we're not allowed to, be the ones just enjoying the ceremonies. We turn into those that actually conduct, or have a part in different ceremonies, and people look to you for that nature, or sorry, for that wisdom that comes with all of those experiences that you've had. And some people are meant to follow that, and some people are not. And it's kind of like being the Dalai Lama. Like, what would happen if everyone was the Dalai Lama? Look at the burden that the Dalai Lama carries, the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he can never go home. You got to know he longs for, his homelands, yet he's not at this point able to, go to his homelands. But he still carries so much from his homelands, deep inside, and being away from the homelands maybe inspires even more knowledge. Then you have the window washer. That window washer, gets in there and he starts to wash your window, and sometimes it's just that high. Maybe you've never had the opportunity. Maybe you're going to commit suicide that day because nobody likes you, or there's something going on, and then the window washer goes, "Hi," and all of a sudden something sparks within you, and all of a sudden, you're craving life again, and that prevents you from, taking a road that maybe you were contemplating, but really wasn't, the time to go that road. So everywhere in between is important. So no matter where you are, one of the questions that is always asked is, "What is my path?" And the question or the answer is always, "You're walking it." So what is it you're creating on your path, and how are you doing that? So um, as um, as a human being, or we call it a spiritual being in a bodysuit, one of the things that help us to connect is the longing for dreams and visions that will help to guide you. And, I could spend this whole time talking about thousands of different little visions that have created the me, or helped me to understand things. But more importantly, a lot of people are afraid to talk about, their dreams and visions, because they've been silenced as a child, different things have happened, and they're afraid, and they get this dream and they think it's something else. They think it's bad. Oh, I shouldn't be having these dreams or whatever. But sometimes I share dreams that really help. So the one dream that I want to share, it's more a vision, is one of the paths I follow is that of the pipe, the sacred pipe. And so the pipe takes you to many places you never dreamed you'd ever be. And I have this land, this really special piece of property, and I was back there, and I was, got my pipe out ready, and I think I don't know if I had just maybe lit it, and all of a sudden, I looked, and there was this line of beings, and they all were wearing like kind of like red blankets, and they were walking with their heads down, and they were going like this, and there was a whole line of them. And next thing you know, the leader looked up. He looked towards, well, it must have been my pipe. He looked towards my pipe. He looks around, and everybody opened, they put their heads up, and boom, they went right up through my pipe. And I even forget at that time, what I was actually praying, why I was, smoking my pipe at the time. But to have an experience similar to that, it really opens your eyes up to something that maybe people are afraid to see, and that would be like other dimensions, spiritual beings, and keys to your past. So we're following this path that. We walk in a very gentle and humble way, but some of us get to experience, the beauty of something like that. So you gotta know that when you see something like that, your heart just sings. It just feels so good because all of a sudden, you understand that, wow, that they have been walking this path looking for that outlet for all of these years, hundreds of years, and all of a sudden now they're all gone home. And sometimes it takes, so I mean, again, I could share like 1,000 different um, situations where dreams help me to understand certain things. And the other thing that taught me was spirits travel in families. And so sometimes you're doing your ceremonies, and um, new spirits come in that maybe the keeper, or or yourself, that you've never seen before. And so it's always new, it's always exciting, and for some it might be scary, but for me it's just definitely not boring. It's like it satisfies something deep within, and that's what we all need to do, is to find that joy, to find that happiness, something that makes us so happy that we want to cry. And so a few years back, the Unity Ride came from BC to Six Nations, and we joined that ride in Wisconsin because that was considered to be, the beginning of our territory. And during that ride there was so much magic that happened. But during one of those nights, the so we were traveling with some people from Makwasasni, and the men said, I think we need to sing us in. And so every night we would do this thing called circle up, and we'd follow the horses, horses would circle up, and we talk about the day, and we talk about what was going to happen the next day. But this time, as we were going down this really beautiful laneway, the men, they went in twos in front of us, and they started to sing our songs. And oh, it was such an experience that we started to cry, and there was so many tears, but it was not of sadness. It was of this, oh my gosh, this beautiful thing that was happening in front of our eyes. And even the horses that weren't our horses, they were also circling up at the same time. And so after that experience, one of my friends said, "Do you know what that was?" And I says that was so beautiful, talking, and he said that was a spiritual moment, because everybody's always looking for, the definition of spiritual. And so he simply said, a spiritual moment is something is when your heart is so happy that it makes you cry. And so think of all of those times in our life that, we've seen something, we've witnessed something, our kids graduating, all of these things that happen, and they just make our hearts so full of love. And that love and that beauty helps to bring us through to another day. And sometimes when we're sharing, about this love and this beauty, other people can't feel it until you help them to feel it. You talk a little bit more, you share a little bit more, and they realize that, wow, I'm the only one stopping me from having that moment. And so then, you just kind of invite them to maybe, have their own spiritual moment. And I've seen lives change simply by a change of perception. Instead of living in this grief, then you want to get past that, and you want to start living from your heart of happiness, because grief is actually happiness, and we kind of get it mixed up sometimes. And it's also love. Our loved ones go to another place, and they're not that far from us, and at our time will come too. So one of the stories of our ways that really inspire me is the story of Hiawatha. And I think part of the story has to do with the fact that before we can heal, we have to shed the darkness. And so there was like so many different ways that the stories represent how the darkness was lifted, and so the minds of the people could come back, and that they could start to heal. And so that was kind of like the beginning of uh, you know, the beauty coming back to our lands, because just like in Europe and other lands, our beauty sometimes was not as great as it could have been. There we had challenges. This place was not always such a place of perfection. We had a lot of challenges that were created because we have a mind, and sometimes those minds get corrupted. And so, and there are beautiful things that happen when we bring our minds back together. And so that's what ceremony does, and that's what seeing those experience of those horses and seeing them visions, they bring you back to this place where you can be in that place of beauty. And beauty again is something that we need to create, because we always walk with our heads down, and we don't look up, and we don't see that beauty that is right before us. And so that's sometimes why an elder will tell you, go sit by the water, go sit under the tree, just be, meditate. You have all of these things, and once you understand that simplicity is the way to the I guess simplicity is the key to that happy life. Just take all of the things that we don't need, shed everything that we don't need anymore, and be able to walk. I can't tell you how many times I've left apartment full of stuff, because I had moved from here to here to here, and I couldn't take everything with me, and you know, bam, I didn't need it, and off I went. And I remember once, the only thing that I wanted was these beads, and somebody had broke into my unit, and he says, "I'm so sorry to tell you this." He says, "But they only took one thing, and it was my beads." And I went, "No, that's the only thing that I wanted. Nothing else, all furniture, nothing meant anything to me except those beads." And it was like, well, I guess I have to go get some more beads. So I mean, I don't want to take up too much more time because we have the beautiful words coming from, Grandfather Mike, and I just wanted to share some of these things so that maybe something will inspire you to be that dreamer. Don't be afraid of your dreams. Dreams don't always happen the way you actually see them, but there's parts of those dreams that will help you, that will nurture you to be where you are and help you with something that you're dealing with, because we have a lot of different types of dreams. And also to create beauty. Uh, Sometimes creating beauty can be as simply as taking some flowers and putting them on your table. Maybe they remind you of childhood. Lilacs remind me of my grandmother, so and I smell my lilacs. Oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful day. Nothing can go wrong that day because the essence of the past and those really good memories come back. So, Nyawagoa, and it's always a pleasure to share what little bit that I can, hopefully to inspire you to go deep within and to find that peace that we're all looking for.
Mahalo nui loa. Thank you so much, Grandmother Gail. That was just absolutely beautiful. And it has been over 25 years for you and I. And I can see how long the road has been for us. All the beautiful things that have happened that have, brought you and I both to where we are today. And I'm so honored to be able to have made this journey with you. So I thank you. And I thank you for everything that you shared tonight with all of us. Thank you. So the next one now will be Grandfather Michael Bastine. And I'm not going to, again, do a lengthy introduction because, excuse me, his bio is already there online. But I do want to share really quickly this book that was mailed to me by Mac Boogaloo. He sent me 3 copies. I was telling Michael that I barely got the paper off the box and 2 were immediately taken away from me. So, but this one is sticking with me no matter what. And it's co-authored by both Michael Bastine and Mac Boogaloo. And it's called Mad Bear, American Indian Unity Movement. And it's a lot of really beautiful information here. And so I want to be sure to share that with you all. So with that, I'm going to again say thank you, mahalo nui Gail, and turn this now over to Michael. Thank you.
Greetings. Well, thank you for this opportunity. And I want to just make it clear, some people think that I am Haudenosaunee, and I am not. My ancestry comes from the Algonquin people. William Commanda was my elder, and my dad is the one who has handed down the native teachings. And it was something which it was interrupted in my dad's life. So he didn't know much, but once things started to develop in life and recognition was we are native, we finally got back in touch, and my dad found out that he is Algonquin. We come from the band or the group that is called Kitigan, Zibi, and Anishinaabe. and it's one of the bands of the Algonquin people. And Maniwaki was where we came from. My dad came down to the Buffalo area after World War II, met my mom, and that's where we resided. And I grew up outside of Buffalo in a little town called South Wales, but we didn't have much connection with our heritage growing up. And we started to get curious. We were wondering what we really were. And that's when the discovery came, and my dad had found out Maniwaki was where his mom came from. And when we made this reconnection, I had found out that those things were of great interest, and I was looking for sources of information. My dad had given me the Rolling Thunder book by Doug Boyd. I read that book, and that was what resonated. Those experiences, they were heartfelt. And when I experienced those things, my dad had asked me, he said, "Would you like to meet Mad Bear?" And I said, "Who wouldn't want to meet Mad Bear?" And I started this journey. I was in my early 20s, and I just would hang out and listen and observe. And then when I heard the teachings of the Haudenosaunee, everything from Peacemaker, Great Law, the Tree of Peace, all of these elements, they resonated on a level which I questioned how come I had never heard these things before. And I realized it's because the society and the system that is out there, it's not very open to it. And I think they felt somewhat threatened by it, but they shouldn't. And they should be more inquisitive to see that these teachings are not just for Native people. These teachings actually are for all humans. And when the experiences that I traveled with Mad Bear for about 8 years before he passed, and in that time, the exposure and the experience are things which I know I would never have had an opportunity to have happen. And yet these things were not just interesting, they were nurturing. And one of the questions that I had was, Mad Bear had explained so much about the Haudenosaunee structure and the teachings. And he said, most, if not all, Native teachings and structure, culture is of a matriarchal society. And, when I heard that, I said, I've never heard anyone speak about a matriarchal society before. And so I said, Mad Bear, why is that? And he goes, it's pretty simple. He said, no one ever confuses who their mother is, but there's always some doubt to who the father might be. So because of that, he said, the clan, the nation, the land title, all of the things that mean anything descend on the woman's side. And I go, well, now it makes sense. I said, and it's unfortunate that we don't have these teachings out there for everyone, to let them know that it is not only the man's responsibility to support and protect the women. The reasons for this is they're bringing in the future generations. And Haudenosaunee and many others, they look to this concept of we need to be looking ahead to the seventh generation. For 7 generations into the future, we need to be preparing. We need to be instructing. We need to be letting everyone know that this is part of a concept which will make life better, not only for the humans, but for Mother Earth. And why do we call it Mother Earth? Well, because she is the one that provides life to everyone and everything. And to have this program come together and start to share these insights. And as we had spoken briefly before the start of the program, we happen to be in the midst of, or just a day after, the full moon. And one of the things that Mad Bear would emphasize is that during the full moon phase, he said the 3 days before, the day of, and 3 days after, the men are supposed to step back from teachings of the medicines, practicing the medicines, administering any of the things that are, and the definition of medicine is not like the prescription things that we hear about. Medicine has a much broader definition, and that medicine is sometimes just good feeling, sometimes sitting with the earth or the trees or the water, and that is where the medicine is. But it's the men's job to respect that and step aside to let the women say, if we need assistance with any area of medicine, that's the time that we go to the grandmothers, to the clan mothers, to the women, to say the cosmos, and I had never heard Mad Bear speak these words, but they were infused in the experience that what we want to do is stack the deck in our favor. Using words like that means knowing when the cosmos, when the earth, when the moon, all of these things in conjunction come together, that's when we start to do certain practices. So he would say, you want to do certain things, and we are coming close in the next couple weeks, actually. We're going to be experiencing equinox. And that's one of the other cosmic experiences that says, oh, now we're going into another change, a cyclical change, a time we're getting ready for. Well, the trees are all beginning to show. It's a great celebration. The trees and the plants are celebrating that they had a great growing season, and they're showing their colors are soon to be shown. And it's an expression that says, let's celebrate with the trees. Let's appreciate all the colors that they have to show to us. And setting things aside to say, let's just observe. They're not going to stay this way for long. We only get a short time when the leaves are celebrating and the trees are saying, we want you to recognize that you had a good growing season. The crops are ready to harvest. the things are, and prepare to get ready for a time when the colors not so bright and it's going to get cold. And when you start to see things from that perspective, it just makes sense that we gather and we sit and we go, let's enjoy some corn soup. Let's enjoy some cornbread. Let's be celebrating the gifts that the earth has provided to us. The three sisters. These are so many teachings which come through the Haudenosaunee and are not just for Haudenosaunee. They're for everyone. And the Haudenosaunee are sharing these teachings. And that was what inspired me when I heard Mad Bear speak. And I said, this is exactly the kind of thing that I've been looking for. These are the teachings that we might even read about, some of them. But it went deeper, because when I observed not just Man Bear, when I observed many more of the elders, they don't just talk these, they live them. And when Mad Bear would speak in front of groups, people would come up after his presentation and they would say, Mad Bear, they go, what is that religion? What is it that you guys, what do you call that? He said, we don't have a religion. He said, it's a way of life. And when you live these things, now life takes on a whole different perspective. Now you calm down these, whether you call them destructive or not, but these behaviors that used to be harmful for Mother Earth. Now you're saying, no, we have to just be responsible and we have to respect all of these elements in this life, everything from Mother Earth, and then celebrate these things. And this is the part which connects us not to just Mother Earth, but connects us to these life forces that explain to us to say, if you want to have a good life, then you have to stay in touch and be grateful for these life forces that are in everything in this creation. Every part of, whether it's the season, whether it's the time of whenever you say, wow, these are times in which there's great teaching and learning and sharing, not just from the humans. These teachings are coming right from this creation. And that's what was so beautiful about the creation story of the Haudenosaunee. And when they talk of Sky Woman, and she's bringing all of these plants and all of these elements with her, and she's saying, these are the gifts that the Creator and the creation has given to us. And they want us to use them. They want us to put them in a place where it says, do you see how that they work harmoniously together? And they are bringing forth all of this beauty. And it's an experience which you start to say, why is it that it is so difficult for this system to not only hear these words, but gather and share these things? And this is why it is so important for what Gail has shared with us to say there are certain individuals that will rise above, as she had used the example of the Dalai Lama. Not everyone is going to be a Dalai Lama. Not everyone is going to be the leader or the one that says, this is the part, this is when we find that element that resonates with us, that's when we go, this is the natural gift that has attracted or interested me. And this is the natural gift that not only is it nice to do and it feels good to share, but when you recognize that this is a gift, that's when you honor these things in a sacred way. And you know, people will say, well, some of those things, they're secret. And I said, no, they're not secret. I said, they're sacred. And the difference between secret and sacred is huge. When you understand that the things that we are using in our practice to be sacred, now we want to share that. There are only a few things that I would say go beyond that part that says it's not secret, but it's sacred and it's protected. And these were the things that Mad Bear had mentioned. He said, when you start doing midwinters, when you start doing the things with the false face, when you start incorporating and being grateful and honoring, and you have ceremony, and you feed these elements, and you take good care of them, because at some point in time in the future, we're going to need their assistance. We're going to have to call upon them, and that's what these things were for. And they didn't share those things openly with some of the people because those people are not ready for honoring, protecting, and preserving what is sacred. And when you find those folks, that's when you just kind of step back and say, just observe, watch and see how they operate, see when they use these elements. And then you start to find, and it's taken me many decades of not only observation, but experiences, that when you see a practitioner using these elements, then you start to find out there's a combination. And people will refer to it as synergy, or the synergization of you combine one or more of these elements, or two or more of these elements. And what you start to see is they work in a very powerful, harmonious way. Now, the reason why I brought that up is I grow the sacred tobacco. And for many years, I have used and practiced with the sacred tobacco. And Mad Bear did too. And he told me, he said, if you ever get seed, he said, and you want to try to grow this, he said, it may not grow for you. It doesn't grow for everyone. But I said, well, I'll give it a shot, and let's see what happens. Well, it did. It grew really well. My sacred tobacco plants would get almost 3 feet tall. They would grow waist high at least. And I'd have to start collecting tobacco in July. And I said, man, I can't keep up. But I did. I harvested the tobacco, and then Mad Bear would need some. Some of the other elders would ask if I had some of the Ongwehewe, or they say the real stuff. And I said, sure. I said, I do. I have some, and I will share that with you. And when you find out that the purpose, and I asked Mad Bear, I said, out of all the plants that we have out in this creation, why this tobacco? Why did that one get selected? And he said, do you remember a time when the earth was purified by water? I said, yeah. I said, they still talk about it on occasion. I said, they called it the flood. He said, well, our people experienced that too. And he said, and they went to higher ground and they survived that time of the purification by water. And he said, they came back down to their villages and they started cleaning up. And he said, if you've ever been through a flood, he said, there's all silt, there's branches, there's all kinds of debris to clean up. And he said, a few days into the cleanup, there were these little sprouts coming up through the silt. And he said, when people were mentioning it, he said the medicine people found out and they called everyone together where these sprouts were coming up through the silt. And they said, because this is the first plant to return to us after the purification of Mother Earth by water, this plant will be the one we use when we need to give direct communication to the Creator, when we need to go and collect medicines for people for their health and for their well-being. We will use this tobacco. It will be used not only to physically place it, but we will burn the tobacco and we will send it to ask for the assistance from the place that is in the great beyond. And he said, we don't know where that place is, but the tobacco, that smoke from that tobacco, will find that place and take that message. So when I heard all of these things, I go, what an amazing part of life. And how come it's sad that this isn't shared with more people? But he just said, just keep playing, don't get so enthusiastic and say, well, we all have to start growing sacred tobacco. He said, it only will work for those who will honor and use it for the means in which it was designed to be used. And he said, that's how sacred this tobacco is. Now, in all my travels, I would have people ask me, they said, why is it that the Haudenosaunee pick their tobacco green? Why is their tobacco green? And I said, all the folks that would know that answer, I said, they've already passed on. Now, I hung out with Ted Williams, also who was Tuscarora. And Ted was a great character too. His level of understanding and explanation of things was just phenomenal. And so I said, I'm going to go out with my pipe and I'm going to make a tobacco offering. I'm going to burn that tobacco and I'm going to ask that question that was asked of me. And so when I went there and as soon as that flame hit that tobacco and I got the smoke to come out, and they knew I formed the question in my head, why is it that the Haudenosaunee use their tobacco green? And the answer came immediately. And I knew it was Ted. And the answer was, because we can't wait to pray. And I heard that and I just said, by golly, I go, that's the perfect answer. And I said, so if anyone ever asks in the future, why do the Haudenosaunee pick their tobacco green and have it like that? And I tell them, I said, the answer I got when I asked that question, and I was standing amongst all the tobacco plants, I said, the answer came in immediately because we can't wait to pray. And I just said, wow. I said, this is the true element of the connection from the plants to the culture, to the teachings, to say, and I was in attendance this year at Wisdom Keepers at Council Grove. And in the final day there, we were at the sacred fire. And as I was making an offering with the tobacco at the fire, I started to look around, and the birds would all come in close, and you'd hear the chatter. And I said, what popped in at that moment was the humans are the only ones, the only life out there that need to be reminded of these teachings. And that's why we gather. And that's why we hold these teachings, because even as much experience as we think we might have, we still need to be reminded. And that's for me, myself too. I need to be reminded. And just because we think we've experienced some of these things, that we think we know that, we still need to be reminded. And that's what I said, why these are so important, to have the gatherings, Wisdom Keepers, the voice of the grandmothers. Everything that we are doing is to help people understand that all your life experience, yes, we can call upon that, but we need to be reminded. The birds don't need to be reminded. No one has to go out and tell the robin how to build its nest, what time it's supposed to come back to its place, the blue jay to do what it's to do. And that was one of my first experiences with Mad Bear, was he made many references to this creation, to the teachings around us in nature. And he asked me, he said, if we looked out the window, and he said, and you saw a blue jay and a robin, he said, which one is right? And I said, I don't know. I said, I've never been asked a question like that. And he said, neither one is right. He said, they're different. He said, you would never see the blue jay hop over to the robin and say, hey, your song isn't right. Your feathers are the wrong color. You eat the wrong foods. You don't build your nest right. He said, they're all different. And that doesn't make them better or worse. It's a proof that he said, if you don't think that the Creator loves diversity, then you haven't experienced this creation. All the different types of grasses, all the different types of plants and flowers, all the things out there that show us how beautiful they are together, and yet they're so diverse, and the diversity is becoming the harmonious. And some people have always made reference to one of the researchers many years back, a guy named Darwin. And some people used to make reference to his findings that would say, well, he's implying that it's survival of the fittest. And actually, when it's looked at by the native people, they would say he's not even close. His findings are proving and showing it's harmonious. It's the survival of the harmonious, not survival of the strong or the most powerful. And so when we see those teachings, now we integrate that into our conversation that says, this makes so much more sense than looking at it from these other perspectives. And why don't we help them understand? Why don't we expand these teachings and share these insights to say, do you see how nice and good life will and can be when we not only read them, but when we start living them? When Mad Bear would share those things and people would be interested, and when he made that remark to say, we don't have religion, we have a way of life. And that way of life is to honor and to respect and understand, staying connected with our mother, staying connected with the grandmother. We're in the full moon phase right now. These are the times in which we are supposed to take that honoring to that next level. And what I have started to make the connection with is when we burn sweetgrass or sage and even cedar, they do have different properties. But the one that I found that there is a synergy, there is a connection. When I burn and offer the sage, the white high mountain sage, prior to offering tobacco, what I found, and when I have conversation with the sage and the tobacco, that they work together. And what the sage basically is providing to us, its medicine is basically saying, I help clear the path for the tobacco to find that place where you're asking for help from, not just here in the physical plane, but finding that place on the spiritual or the etherical plane to say, now this tobacco can find its way easier by offering that and using the sage's medicine that it provides. And I hear that conversation, and it says, when you offer my smoke from the sage, I will help clear the path for your tobacco to find that place, to receive and get that message and the help that's required for whoever you're asking the help for. So when I started to see that happen, and the results is more when you get the feedback at another time when someone says, do you know that problem that I was having with this health issue, it's gone. And I said, wow. I said, it's working. Because sometimes you need to ask for the help, not just from here. I said, if the help is here, then hopefully this will help their paths cross, and they will get the help that they need from the people around here or somewhere else. And if it isn't, then it will go beyond to find that next place, to retrieve that help that's needed for their wellness to be restored. And they need to work with that. If they are in need of their wellness to be restored, then they need to also work with that and not just make the offering and then sit back and put their feet up and say, I already did what they say to do and that's going to happen. No, you have to work with it. You can't just say, oh, okay, I went through what was stated and said this is what needs to be done. Then you work with it. You don't just sit back and say, let that do all the work. No, that's there to assist us. And that's exactly what it does. And it will help us when we run into these types of situations in life, which it's been such a great experience to find these things and recognize that this is such a connected world. And it's only been, and part of the problem, it's a double-edged sword. The technology provides us to do what we're doing here tonight, but at the same time, it is another distraction. And if the people don't figure out how to use it correctly, then it gets in the way. And unfortunately, the youth, when I would make visitation up to Tuscarora, and I would say, wow, why aren't these kids showing up at these places? And you hear them, well, it's new school. This is the new thing. And they all have their devices. And I'm going, no, I go, you have to live this to have the teachings stay alive. You need to be living this. And yes, the phone is, those devices are nice and convenient for whatever the purpose it needs to be used for. But when they start relying on it and they say, well, Google it. I go, do you want to understand what's sacred? You can't Google that. You have to go out and spend the time and then say, I finally experienced what is sacred, what is special. And it can't be viewed in a video. It can't, you have to go right to it and experience that part of the life to say, now I understand. Now I know that what the references are being made to say these are the things in which we want our children and our grandchildren and to the seventh generation to stay connected with. We want them to understand and take whatever it is that we have lived to the point where we are. We want to hand that to them to say, go further with it. You can take this to the next level. And we're here to support you and guide you with that. So when there is interest, we want this to be open and shared with as many. And this is why I say these things are not exclusive for the Native people. These are for the humans. And that's what the Creator wants us to do, is to share these things with as many humans that we can share it with. So if this is the time and the place where we are, then let's make the most of this. Let's share this with as many as we possibly can. And hopefully, maybe we can get even more feedback from these other people who will start to join in with these practices to say, tell us what they're saying to you. Tell us from your perspective, how does this influence and how does this impact how you see life? And I mean, every day is such a great experience. And you just acclimate to the changes of the season, the changes that are presented to you every day. And when you go, this is finally the time and the place to apply these teachings and these concepts and to share them with as many as we can to say, do you see how easy this is? It's just a little time out of the day that you're making an acknowledgement. You're recognizing these things that are right there for us, but you're taking a little time to show and to say, I am grateful that I have had this opportunity to learn about the things that we can use in our daily practice, and it will actually clear that space to make our days go either less distractive or less interference with the things that are out there trying to, I guess you would say, there are things out there trying to get in your way. And that's what these other things are for, to clear that path and say, do you see how much nicer your life will be when you use and practice with these sacred elements? And this is why we use them. And it's not, some people will say, well, doesn't it clear out evil? I said, nothing really clears out evil. I said, what it does is it makes a space that attracts the positive and the good elements of life. And when you attract those energies that provide what we call the life force that is needed for us to live well and feel well every day, that's what those things do for us. Then when you practice and use those, when you put that into the use of your daily start of every morning, when I light a little piece of sage and I just enjoy that, the aroma, and then I'm going, and it tells me, yeah, I'm here to help you clear some space. I'm here to help you on your day's journey. You won't have to deal with some of those things that are out there trying to interfere and get in your way. And when you look at the life that way, that's when you say, okay, it's at enough of a distance. Now I don't have to be concerned, and I can go ahead with what is needed to do, whether it's going out to spend time in the garden. If it's time, it's you know you have this space that has been expanded, and it says these are what our ancestors have been wanting us to share for the next 7 generations, to say this is how easy it can be, and this is how well it works. And when you start to see, wow, it is that simple of a process, it's that easy to take these things on and go, how come no one ever showed me or let me know that life can be this easy, and yet at the same time help you connect to the things that you enjoy. This is, I had a brief conversation with another friend that he was telling me about how complex and simple at the same time a seed is. And he said, do you know what's in each seed from each plant? He said, this thing is got such a complex element within it. He said, when you plant this, and he starts describing on another level, that he goes, there's 3 of this force, and 3 of this force, and 3 of this force. And when they combine, he said, that's why each plant knows what color to be, how to design the patterns in the leaf. And he starts getting into the details, because I said, have you ever looked at these plants and wondered, why is that one blue? Why is this one yellow that has white stripes in its petal? And he said, that's how special these seeds are. And he said, and every plant hands down that same genetic code into every seed. And he goes, and we don't appreciate because we don't think. There have been people who have gone through different practice with ayahuasca, and some people have said they have actually heard the voices from the plants. And sometimes the plants would say, go easy on them. In conversation with other plants, they said, they're only human, because the humans sometimes think that we have the higher intelligence or the higher function beyond all the rest of this creation, and we don't. If we want to really learn, I would suggest that people go out and start to spend more time with the pine trees, the maple trees, all of the elements that are out there, and you will find that they have the teachings that we need to be reminded of the things that are really sacred in this life. And when we do that, now you're just at that beginning point. And this is when I would ask people, let it go to the next level. Go beyond that. This is why the teachings of why the tobacco, why the sage, why all of these other elements, when we come and bring them together and you start to see how important that is to bring these elements together and then use them to do what they were designed for, the purpose that they were put here for. And it's an amazing time that we are in to start to share these things, to let the people know, listen to the grandmothers, listen to the women, because they are the ones that the men are supposed to protect and support when they are bringing the teachings that we need to hear. So by having your program and giving it the voice of the grandmothers, it's perfect for the time that we are in, to share these things on another level that says it's not that difficult. And we need the men to be becoming more involved and saying, this is how simple this can be. And believe me, life will get so more enjoyable. You will appreciate having all of these things, and the parts that you start resonating with is showing you this is the area in which you are gifted. And then you work on that gift and you continue to develop that, and to just be grateful to say, we all have some area of a gift, and that gift needs to be not only honored, but shared. And when we honor the gift, it's saying, this is what I would like to offer for all of you to say, join us, get involved, be a part of this time, so that we can share with each other and tell me what you're finding from your experiences, and say, do you see, every human has a slightly different perspective, and it doesn't mean it's wrong. Again, we go back to that teaching of the blue jay and the robin. They're just different. And we need to spend that time to say, let's look further within this and say, aren't we so grateful to have these teachings still with us? And when some people say, oh, we're discovering some ancient, and this is new stuff, I'm going, there is no new stuff. You're just touching in on the ancient things that have kind of drifted, and they're distant, but they're not new. Our ancestors had them back in their time, and they just want us to remember, to be grateful for them, to hand those teachings to us. And that's what the purpose of what we're doing is, to hand these teachings to the next generation and to tell them, we want you to work on this, develop that, and hand that again to their generation and to the next generation, so that we are not only practicing, but we're showing and telling them the importance, that these are the things that will really matter. And it's good that you have an opportunity. This is the good part of the technology, is that you can archive and you can have these things available for people who may not be able to participate at the live time. But I don't know what time we're getting to be, but I know I said I didn't want to run over too long, because when things develop like this, it leads into another and then another. And I know that we have to, at some point in time, say, we're grateful. And I just say, miigwech and Yahweh. And thank you is thank you, no matter how you say it. And to all of you for what you're doing to make this happen. There are great things that will come from this, and it's not a reward or anything. It's just a purpose in which we have taken that responsibility, and we're grateful that we have had a time to share and to do this. I will say thank you to all of you, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to share this time, and that may this, let's call it a prayer. Ted would always say, may that prayer go on forever. So thank you for all of your words and your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Grandfather Michael. We agree with you and Ted. There is no closing of this circle tonight. It remains open so that all of the things that have been said here can ripple out on and on and on. It's why we don't charge for it. It's why it has nothing to do with money, and everything is archived so that it can go and be given freely to everybody. I want to thank you personally. First of all, both of you, Gail and Michael. I feel so full. I feel that Gail stepped into the room. She brought fluffy, soft blankets for everyone. She brought big cups of cocoa or cacao or whatever this is. And she seated us down and she wrapped her heart around us. And she got us all nice and comfy. And then, Grandfather, you came in and you brought with you your entourage. All of your elders came too. You know, you were not alone. They were all there with you, you know, and your father and Gail's father, you know, and all these, we're not alone. We are not alone. And for so many of us, and like you said, not everybody's on this call tonight, but I can tell you that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds as it's rippling out that hear it within the next couple of days. But I want it to go on for years. I want it to be there because what you have done is you have brought us all together and you have fed us and you have helped us. And for those of us who are alone or feel alone, that we wish we had our elders, we wished we had the opportunity, you have gifted us all that tonight. So mahalo nui loa and Yahweh Gua. Thank you so much. And thank you both. And this has just been such a huge blessing for everyone. So with that, without closing the circle, I will now turn it over to Jody to take us out the door for the end of the evening. And thank you all.
Now, Chimagwich, thank you so much. With a big smile, I was watching and listening in the background, and it's engaging, it's inspiring, it's beautiful. Thank you, Grandmother Susan, Grandmother Gail, Grandfather Mike for sharing your voices and stories and experiences and gifts with us. What was spoken here lives beyond this moment. These teachings ripple forward. They awaken something ancient in us, something that remembers who we are and why we're here. The circle remains open. The fire is still burning. We carry it now with humility, with courage, and with love. So I invite you, tend the fire in your own heart. Listen for the voices of your elders. Walk with the ancestors. Speak truth. Be gentle. And return here when the time calls again. You can revisit these teachings and follow the full 52-week journey on Grandmother's Voice YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Until next time, may your path be lit by the wisdom of the grandmothers and grandfathers. And may you never forget you're a part of this story too. Yawa.
Oh,
Thank you.
all right. We can.
For some reason, technology is not allowing me to end this stream. I'm pushing the button, people. So bear with us. Don't go too far. I'm going to try to go into another window here. Oh, there we go.